It's great to be in the AOL office at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona with Allie Kline and Jimmy Maymann, both from AOL. You kind of got a slightly new job though, haven't you, recently?
I do, yeah. It's quite some time. It's since this summer, right? You know, when Ryzen came on and they wanted us to look at our content portfolio in a new and different way. They elevated me to have, a perspective on all our content and consumer brands, not just HuffPost where I was before. So that's right.
Are you enjoying that?
Oh, I'm enjoying it a lot. It's been a lot of fun. What we like is Ryzen has kind of brought a lot of new focus on us because we need to accelerate. We need to accelerate when it comes to mobile. We need to accelerate when it comes to video, and they're very ambitious on our behalf. And obviously, as a former entrepreneur, I love that they're pushing us. So that's been great so far.
I'll definitely come back to you on how you're working with mobile. But just talking about where we are at the moment, are you enjoying Mobile World Congress? Is it your first time?
It is my first time here. How about you?
No, I've actually been here last year, but this year we've really doubled down on it, and obviously have to do again with Ryzen being our owner now, but also that we acquired Millennial Media. That has really opened up for us, the mobile space in a new way. They obviously have 70,000 apps. They have a lot of third-party publishers. It's a new space for us to play in, and they always play in this space. So for us, it's kind of like opening up, not a new world, because from a consumer and content perspective, 70% of all our consumption is now on mobile devices. So it's kind of coming together in a very interesting way. If you think about it, Ryzen bringing the screen and the that as an asset, and the data that falls with that, and obviously we have a lot of first-party data across our owned and operated, and then of course Millennial Media coming with third-party data and kind of marrying all these three things together, I think offers up a lot of new opportunities for us in terms of formats that we can create, but also informing us on kind of the content and things we need to do.
Going back quickly again to Mobile World Congress, what have you guys been seeing and doing while you've been here this time?
Yeah, well, I think, obviously, there's hundreds of client meetings happening here,
Yes.
which is fantastic. And I think it's such an awesome signal that the industry is really looking at this as one of the pillar tentpoles. It's a huge signal to where we are in terms of consumer movement to mobile as well, right? I think from everyone from brands, publishers to partners, this really seems to be one of the most important destinations for us going forward, along the lines of CES, to Mexico, and Advertising Week in New York, as well as Cannes. So that's fantastic. I think in terms of a takeaway, we're seeing a lot of things we saw relative to CES. Lots of IoT, lots of VR, and I think particularly on the advertising and media community, how do you take those new devices, how do you take these innovations, and also to Jimmy's point earlier, think about what data do those put off, how do you appropriately use that data in order to really increase and enhance the consumer experience, and also, of course, marketer and content creator experience.
So, Jimmy, what do you think is the key to great mobile content? Something that I've heard a lot of discussion about. And how are you transferring mobilely?
No, I think that's a good question. I think it really has to do with you have to put yourself in the consumer's place, and that obviously means that suddenly you're kind of tasked with writing or creating content for a smaller screen. So I think we have a lot of editorial and journalistic people on our staff, and one of the things that we're challenging them with is write to the mobile first. Since we're now a mobile first company in the sense that we have 70% of our audience coming by mobile devices, then that should be the starting point, because it's much easier to go from a small screen to do a bigger screen, a tablet or a desktop, or even a TV. Whereas if you start on the desktop and have to squeeze it down into a mobile, it actually creates experiences that are less engaging and also not necessarily created for what the mobile is good for. And I think that's definitely one of the things. Another thing is, of course, the mobile is such a powerful device. There is obviously, location-based things that you can do with it. So that also allows us to kind of project relevant content at the right point in time. So I think those kind of things are also things that we need to, tap into, lean into, and understand how that creates a better user experience.
What about ad blocking? What do you think the impact of that is on that field?
No, in general, I think as an industry, we have a job in front of us, and that is, if people do not want to consume content, if there's ads on it, then we have to improve the ad experiences, and I think that's something that we're tasked with as an industry. And I think if you look at the mobile, since we're here in Barcelona, I think we need to innovate around the formats that we put on the mobile, because it is a smaller screen, and I think we've seen some solutions, in-stream solutions that are working quite well. But I also think if you think about it, the video advertising on the mobile done the right way can actually be quite powerful. The thing with video advertising on the mobile is that when it's done right and people activate it, it takes over the whole screen. Whereas if you see video advertising on the desktop, it actually takes on a small segment of your screen. So I think there's so many things that can be done. And as I said, I'm excited about the opportunity, both from a content creation perspective, but also from an ad format perspective.
You mentioned about the various changes with regards to Verizon and millennial media and such. I also think I've seen that you said something about AOL brand might be changing. Is there anything you can say about that?
No, I mean, I think you've seen us make some pretty bold moves around our brand infrastructure for some time. One by AOL on the platform side of our business has really emerged as the parent brand for both advertisers and publishers representing our stack. And so as we continue to grow and scale at the rate at which we do, right, in addition to the Millennial and Verizon acquisitions, we also did a really large partnership with Microsoft, where we're now representing all of those properties from an ad standpoint. We have partnerships with the likes of things like Go90, which is Verizon's OTT asset, and all of their IoT innovations coming down the pike. So we'll continue to look at our brand both at the corporate level, but also at the product level as we begin to represent something very different than what we did at one point in time.
And obviously there's a global expansion that you're working towards.
Yeah.
What are the plans there?
Well, I mean, we're in 22 countries now, right? So I think last year at this time, we were scratching the surface and operating really well in the UK and Australia and a little bit in Japan, with some scatter in other markets. So the footprint we have today is just, it's so materially different than where we were even just a year ago.
So what do you guys think is the future of mobile?
Oh, that's if I knew the answer to that, obviously, I would be able to make a lot of money here. But there's no doubt, obviously, as Ali
talked. Where would you put your money
no,
for
exactly.
now?
Yeah.
If you kind of listen to what Ali talked about a little bit earlier, I think across mobile, but across all devices, what's happening right now, which is very interesting, is of course virtual reality and augmented reality. And I think if you saw the unpacking event Samsung did on Sunday with Zuckerberg, you had all the people sitting in a room with the VR devices on there, and I think that is interesting, and that will change the way we think about what it is today. And I don't even think there's a lot of people that can imagine what it will be. I actually walked past yesterday night at the Plaza Catalunya, where Samsung had this booth, which they've basically created a roller coaster ride. You go and you sit down, you put on the screens, and people are sitting still, or they move a little bit, and then they feel that they're in a roller coaster, right? So kind of reimagining kind of what we think reality is today, and using those devices, I think is going to be interesting. But what I also will say is that we obviously need to see that these devices are getting user adoption, in the sense that we need the devices to get out to the users. So right now it's still early days. At AOL, we're doing a lot of testing. We're doing, next week we actually have an open session with Cornell University, where we're testing out different things from a VR perspective. Our Autoblog did a series, 360 series with virtual reality in their series called Translogic. So we are testing things, but it's still early days, because there's not a lot of devices out there. But I think that will change the way, in ways we cannot sit here and imagine at this point in time. But it's obviously, we're at not even at the 1 yard line, and there's so much that's gonna affect us when that comes down the pipe.
Yeah, I just think the other thing that I would say is I think you're really starting to see mobile as the first device, right? So, for years, television was obviously the first device, then the computer starts to edge on that. But I think while it doesn't feel as sexy on the show floor as VR or IoT or any of those innovations, content and video creation, I think we are going to have this massive wave of, design for mobile, new creator communities. It's a very different experience. It's a very different medium, but it is opening up an amount of time to be able to put content in front of consumers that has never been imagined before, right? And so the notion of how much people are going to spend on their phone, the notion that by next year 75% of all mobile consumption will be video, right? That's something that, again, doesn't feel as sexy and innovative and shiny, but I think it is perhaps, it's certainly something Jimmy's been leading in investment in the industry, but it's something that I think is just going to be completely breakout for us.
And people have been talking about the year of mobile for a long time. I mean, do you think it's happened, or do you think it's now? Or
no, and I think just to build on Allie's point, I think the year of mobile was probably last year. I think the year is now kind of what do you do with that, right? And developing mobile, developing new experiences, and as Allie was just pointing out, what's more in front of us than VR is really how do you develop video on this device, right? As Allie was saying, this year. In 2015, 55% of all mobile data was video, right? And it wasn't a lot of professionally created content. It's actually 85% of all content that's out there is actually created by you and me, amateur creators that are creating content and sharing it. You're a professional. I'm an amateur, but people that are sharing it with each other. And I think
my video is quite amateur.
and obviously what we want to do is tap into that, finding out how with video, how can we leverage the normal average Joe that are creating video, how can they become a contributor that we can leverage? And on top of that, how can we then power that with all the premium content that we want to create on our own? But we will need so much video content because people really has this urge for video and consumption on the phone. So we won't even be able to do it on our own. So we need to find out how we get that balance right with contributors and with the premium content that we want to create.
Fabulous. Well, thank you ever so much for talking to us, and enjoy the rest of the Congress.
You too. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.